Two questions that often come up when discussing things at least amongst people who are skeptical of forced vaccination and things of that matter, is where is this all heading? What does it culminate in? And what do we do about it? And I think where it's heading in I don't want to say distant future, but not so distant future, not next year necessarily, but I think where it's going is biodigital convergence. So I wanted to touch on that and to explain. There's a big report on biodigital convergence from Economic Futures, exploring biodigital convergence. And what they say it is, by their definition, it's a full physical integration of biological and digital entities. Digital technology can be embedded in organisms, and biological components can exist as parts of digital technologies. The physical meshing, manipulating, and merging of the biological and digital are creating new hybrid forms of life and technology, each functioning in the tangible world, often with heightened capabilities. Robots with biological brains and biological bodies with digital brains already exist, as do human computer and brain machine interfaces. Good example of that would be like Stephen Hawking's speech device. The medical use of digital devices in humans, as well as digitally manipulated insects such as drone dragonflies and surveillance locusts, are examples of digital technology being combined with biological entities. By tapping into the nervous system and manipulating neurons, always a good idea, tech can be added to an organism to alter its function and purpose. New human bodies and new senses of identity could arise as the convergence continues. What scares me about that is new senses of identity. They're talking about changing what it means to be human. And that is exactly how Klaus Schwab puts it. He wants to change what it means to be human. So this is more than a very simple form of human enhancement would be like wearing eyeglasses. This is more than that. This is more than a pacemaker to help your normal human function. It's going above and beyond human function, even to the point that they're saying changing your human identity. So, another thing you may have heard of is the Internet of Bodies. And that is the idea behind it is introducing nanotechnology to all human beings so that you've got your own digital signature. And they've got technology now to put a, a barcode, a digital imprint on everything. Um, a leading expert that was talking about it put it this way. So coffee beans can be picked on a mountain in Peru or wherever and put into a batch and sold in a store. That those coffee beans, and I can't remember if he said even like a single coffee bean. Well, I don't know what the point of getting that specific would be, but would have a digital imprint. And so after a consumer buys the coffee bean, grinds it up, puts it through a brewer, consumes it, and excretes it, that biological signature can be detected in the toilet. And if you've been paying attention, they're already talking about smart toilets so that your waste can be evaluated. Why would they want to do that? Well, because they're insane, but also to secure total control of you. What's behind it, and what's behind just about everything, even COVID-19, is the climate change hoax. And what they're going to do is tie everything to a carbon footprint, so that when your waste is examined by your smart toilet, they can say you've had too much meat and you're not allowed to eat anymore. I know that sounds like an extreme, but that's literally what they're talking about. MasterCard right now is working on a carbon footprint credit system so that if you've bought too many things that adversely impact the globe by their definition, then they'll just cut you off. And so everything has a carbon footprint. It costs a certain amount of carbon to make a notebook or a shirt or whatever. So they're going to keep track of what you spend your money on. Remember that a big part of the Great Reset is that you will own nothing and be happy. And that's their words. You're going to own nothing and you're going to like it. Everything you own or everything you use will be rented. You're going to rent it. It's going to be delivered on a drone. And I know this sounds like a dystopian future, but that's what they're saying, not me. So attaching a digital imprint to literally everything so that they can track everything. And not only that, that will be tied to a social credit system, so that if you're misbehaving by eating too much meat, which they want to get rid of, by the way, they're talking the creation of synthetic meat and bug proteins, and not only that, but filtering human waste and recycling that into water. The idea being they'd filter out the impurities. Um, and some guy who's like, what? In the back of the classroom might say, hey, what if we just did that to rainwater? Could we do that instead? And they say, no, nah, it's gotta be poop. It's gotta be pee. That's how we're gonna do it. And I think they're also discussing, apart from analyzing your waste in the toilet, I think they're even taking anal scans, like an eye scan. I guess maybe every human has a unique anal imprint or signature rather. Um, I saw something like that. I didn't look into it, but that might be in the works as well. So when they're saying you're going to drink sewage, you're not going to own anything, and you're going to like it. You're going to eat bugs, and we're going to degrade you by looking up your butthole. This is a This is intentional degradation. It's to dehumanize in more than one way. So it's to dehumanize you on that emotional level. But again, they're talking about dehumanizing you through this biodigital convergence as well. So to me, as a spiritual person, this goes all the way back to I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. It's a clash against it's a spiritual clash against humanity, and a big part of that I think is going to be this biodigital convergence. When they were coming out with these videos, you saw the videos. I've commented on it before, where these people are getting magnetized at these injection sites. They'll even to the point where they're taking their phones and sticking them to their arm, and they let go, and the phone stays. That's pretty strong magnetism. And I said from the outset, that's real. That's not a hoax. They're not playing around. And of course, got mocked and scorned, and you're a moron, and that's not how it works, and blah blah blah. Or my favorite, oh well, I got the vaccine, and that doesn't happen to me. So you're one person. That doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that every single vaccine has those properties. But as we found out, Japan had discovered that a few million doses of, I think it was Moderna, were contaminated with metallic magnetic particles. And so Japan has rejected the United States' vaccines. And that is what the SPARS document said, which was written in 2017. They said Japan is going to reject America's vaccinations. That is one of many predictions in that document that came true. Um, so that's not even old or new, rather new technology. That is um, magnetic nanoparticles are a thing. They've been a thing for a while. It's it would be, I would consider it a dual use technology. Dual use being something that has a military application and a medicinal application, basically. So so these magnetized nanoparticles are coated in a lipid coating. The idea being that you inject them and then you can take a magnet and move it to wherever they can be of benefit. So I don't know if I don't know what the medicinal application would be. Let's say there's something wrong here. Maybe there's a cancerous growth or something. Then you could move those nanoparticles to where they need to work on that. Um, so that is a thing. Um, Always happy when there's vindication for the tinfoil hats, but still people won't listen to it. So whatever. People are some people are bound and determined not to hear the truth, and it's because there's an emotional barrier there. There's a fear, and if they begin to open themselves up to these very scary things, they're going to have to confront some stuff that emotionally they're not in a place to do. It is emotional weakness, and I can't dress that up in nice terminology. It's simply cowardice. That's what it is, and that's fine. But it's going to kill you. It's going to prevent you from protecting yourself, because if you just go, too scary, it's going to come and bite you in the ass because you weren't prepared for it, because you didn't listen. Um, but dual use technology, another dual. By the way, so just so you know, the carbon allowance thing, that's uh, that's real. From Nature Sustainability, we have Personal Carbon Allowances Revisited, a scholarly article on that. I know it's backwards, but you can look it up for yourself. Type it into your favorite search engine, Personal Carbon Allowances Revisited. But another dual use technology is mRNA. What is mRNA? That's messenger RNA. That's technology that has the ability to manipulate your very genome. And so what that is a gene-based therapeutic. And in another article called "Why Gene Editors Like CRISPR-Cas May Be a Game Changer for Neuroweapons," it is said that they posit the strong likelihood that development of genetically modified or created neurotropic substances will advance apace with other gene-based therapeutics. mRNA is a gene-based therapeutic, and we assert that this represents a novel and realizable path to creating potential neuroweapons. So mRNA is a dual-use technology. They're ostensibly using it for our benefit, even though it's shown to be completely useless in terms of thwarting COVID-19. By the way, this is done from this paper is written by Diane D. I don't know how to say her last name, PhD, a senior research fellow at the Center for the Study of Weapons of Mass Destruction, National Defense University, Washington, D.C., and James G., PhD. He's a professor at from departments of neurology and biochemistry and chief neuroethics studies program, yada yada. So people who know what they're talking about, saying basically that mRNA, gene-based therapeutics, can be among the most potent of neuroweapons conceivable. So, do you want to take an mRNA vaccine from the people who say that they want to change what it means to be human? Is a question you have to ask for yourself. And changing what it means to be human is fully realizable. That's not science fiction anymore, unfortunately. Um, you look at Dolly, the cloned Dorset Finn sheep. When was that done? I forget off the top of my head. 1992, decades ago, that was completed. And when you think about technology, what happens with technology is the inevitable development and human application of it. So once it's introduced, you don't just you're never going to see, okay, we discovered something and we're going to leave it alone. We're going to set that down now. So even though we don't see human clones walking around, that doesn't mean that they didn't immediately begin to study that right as after they had success with Dolly, or even before that, because we know that whatever they bring to face the public, whatever they present to the people, they've got some other stuff that's laying back behind the scenes that they're waiting for the population to become accepting of before they introduce. Um, the SR-71 Blackbird, the supersonic jet that flies faster than the speed of sound, that was in operation for years before. I think what's that? Skunkworks came out and said, "Yeah, that's a thing. That's been in operation for ages before it was introduced to the public." And we also, I think, have a hint at what really science is capable of because of the Human Animal Hybrid Prohibition Act of 2009, wherein they stated um, you're not allowed to make human animal hybrids. And they weren't just talking about growing ears on mice and things like that. And that's another thing we've seen years and years ago. They're talking about human animal genetic chimeras. Um, Now that has very recently gone away. I'd also like to say that when you see something like that, that's for you, the people. That's for independent researchers and scientists. That's not for the government. Nothing applies to the government. That's so you don't mess with that. We're going to do it in our DUMBs. That's an acronym for Deep Underground Military Base. And yes, they have those. Noteworthy one or more common or well known one would be the um, Cheyenne Mountain Base. There are more than that, but of course, they're military bases. You're not supposed to know about them. Um, so of course, they're working on that and have worked on that. And who knows? They may have been successful for years already. They're not going to tell anybody about it. They need to cultivate social receptivity. They need to make sure that people are not going to revolt against their abominations. And we do see some of that in the form of soft disclosure. Anything, TV, it's meant as an opiate for stupid people. It's also meant for, they use that as an avenue of soft disclosure to prime public receptivity to things. And so we see that in movies like Netflix is really, it's just propaganda flicks at this point. I can't stand watching it. Every single thing on there, you can pick something out. And if you can't, then you don't have a good propaganda detector, and that's fine. But trust me, just about every damn thing on there is propaganda. Sweet Tooth is one that is some soft disclosure for this human animal hybridization. Um, in it, there's a virus outbreak, there's a pandemic, and chaos everywhere, riots, stuff on fire. And amidst the chaos, there's a technological breakthrough of some kind, and there's these human animal hybrids that start being born. Um, I think they're born to human mothers, not created in their story. And I haven't finished it. I started the first episode. I know a little bit about it. So far, they're also bringing racial division into it. There's the black people are there to free the human animal hybrid creatures, and then the white people are evil and are after him, trying to kill him. Of course, they have to bring racial division into everything because that's also a part of their program. Speaking of which, by the way, COVID-19 or these forced vaccinations can be a unifying thing. We've got BLM saying now these vaccinations, the mandates are unconstitutional. And well, they're BLM, so they say, well, they're racist. And good opportunity for different races, cultures, creeds to come together and rebel against the government. That's a side topic. But I think that is something that is going to happen. So when we're talking about biodigital convergence, putting nanobots in every human being, so you've got a digital signature, and they know everything about you. There's also documentation stating in regards to this developing technology that they're going to be able to know what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So it's not just getting your biological stats, it's more than that. It's total control. H.G. Wells authored, a number of books. One of them was The Island of Dr. Moreau. And in it, this mad scientist creates human animal chimeras. H.G. Wells was a pretty prominent Freemason, as I understand it. And I read the book a long time ago. I don't know if this is in the book or just the movie, but at least in the movie, Dr. Moreau was able to control the beast people because if they began to revolt, then he just had this device. They were all implanted with technology, with a chip, where he could push a button and they would drop to the ground in writhing in agony. And that's how they're controlled. I don't think that if you've got nanobots circulating through your system, that that possibility is a real far cry from reality. I think that's very possible. And when you look at what they're seeking to do, to know everything down to the coffee bean that you ingested, and know what you're thinking and what you're feeling, which has very Minority Report pre-crime implications, which is extraordinarily dangerous. Um, again, this is in their literature. This is not fringe conspiracy theorists that are coming together and saying, "Here's what I think could happen." This is in their literature. I need to constantly send that reminder out because it starts to sound insane because it is insane. So you need to know that these are what the most high-ranking, smartest people on the planet are coming together and saying. People like Ray Kurzweil, prominent transhumanist, what his thoughts are on God is I think someone asked him, and just paraphrasing, like, do you believe in God? And he said, not yet, because these people are nut jobs, and to them, they're becoming God. He is looking for Kurzweil in particular, as well as a lot of these leading transhumanists, are trying to facilitate what they call the singularity, an AI singularity. And that's a thing as well. So much so that the National Security Commissions on Artificial Intelligence put together this interim report, um, pretty lengthy, about the implications of that, potential dangers, and things of that nature. This is even older, so they've been working on this for a long time. Not that old, 2012, Human Enhancement and the Future of Work. So not even really fringe science. This is mainline science that you hear it discussed, but the dangers of it are never really presented. It's always a very favorable thing. Well, we can cure cancer. We can put nanobots in you and repair cellular damage as fast as it happens. Well, who wouldn't sign up for that? It's the people that are being pigeonholed as evil science deniers and people who are going to hold back human evolution, most notably Christians. Because a Christian looks at the verse that says, men will seek death and not find it, and look at what's going on in the scientific realm. Now, in your DNA strand, the end of it is called a telomere. That's what determines your lifespan. And the sort of thing that these people are looking at as well, the telomere of, say, a blue whale uh, is longer. They have a long lifespan. So what if we could combine with that and give ourselves lifespans of like 175, 300 years maybe? Well, people's eyes are going to light up at that. And any faction of people that seeks to prevent that or even speaks out against it are going to be bioterrorists or anti-human terrorists. Again, it goes back to that ancient principle of the seed of the serpent versus the seed of God, this human anti-human war. We're coming back, we're coming up to this boiling point where it's literally a war for humanity, and you're going to have pureblood humans, and you're going to have people who consider the purebloods dirty, and not only dirty, but a hindrance to their longevity. So, transhumanism is essentially, I'm sorry if I'm angering any atheists, it's what godless people, it's the godless version of eternal life. They're going to become gods in their own words. So you hear things like, and I heard stuff like that too, or when I looked at that verse, men are going to seek death and not be able to find him. Like, so there's no cliff to jump off of. There's no water. There's no guns. There's nothing sharp. You can't stab yourself in the throat. You can't jump off a building. Doesn't even make sense. It does if there's technology to repair cellular damage as soon as it occurs. And these transhumanists, they don't really give any thought to what does the quality of my emotional life or spiritual life feel like, because first of all, they deny anything like a spirit, even though they have emotions. And so, um, yeah, I want to live 300 years if it's a great life. If it's torture, if it's intellectual or even physical or emotional torture, and so bad that I want to die, then I don't want to live that long. I don't. That's throwing me into a torture dungeon for 300 years. No thanks. They don't think that far ahead. They're just, all they're doing is thinking, I can be a god, I can be God, I can be God. And they literally think that they're going to achieve that. I think Kurzweil's timeline is a little ambitious. He was looking, what was he looking at? By the year 2040 or something like that, where this AI singularity is going to take hold. And there's other transhumanists that disagree with that. But another verse to look to, I think, is when the abomination of desolation takes its seat on the throne. That's when the end is here. Well, what is the ultimate abomination? It's a perversion. It's a false god. I can't think of anything more abominable than a machine merged with something that was once a human, claiming to be God and issuing dictates to the world. And even these people say that if there is a singularity that takes place, this AI system, which is just going to absorb all the power and knowledge of the internet, is probably going to see humans as viruses and just eradicate humanity. But that's what they're going for, remember. Look at the Georgia Guidestones. They state in no uncertain terms, just like these other documents state, that they want to destroy humanity. They want to decimate humanity. That's the point. That's the point. We're a plague. So eradicate the image of God by eradicating humanity and replace it with a perversion. The abomination is fine. The perversion is fine because we're going to make a bigger, better human that lasts longer and has no sickness or ailments or illness, which again sounds pretty attractive, but not if these people are not very forward thinking. Follow that through to its logical conclusion. Um, and of course, climate change is behind it all. We need to do this because the planet is going to. Now, Biden says that, look, we've only got like 10 years left unless we do something really drastic. Otherwise, the world's going to end because of climate change, which is what they've been saying for over 20 years. Of course, the polar ice caps are supposed to have been melted by now. The very people that say that the polar ice caps are going to melt and all the coastal cities are going to flood, while the impressionable, naive public are like, oh no, please take my rights away, they're busy buying up properties on the coastline because they don't believe what they're saying. They know it's BS. That sort of nonsense is for stupid people, not for them. They know what they're saying is a lie. They know the world's not going to end in 10 years. That's ridiculous. But what happens in 10 years? Well, that's when 2030 is. That's their deadline. Have you heard of Agenda 2030? That is the UN's plan of action. That's when they hope to see these smart cities and smart toilets, and you don't eat meat unless we say you eat meat, and you don't do anything we don't tell you to do, and there's going to be a digital currency and a social credit system. So we have full and total control, and the population will be decimated, just like we said we wanted in these documents on the Georgia Guidestones, in accordance with nature. Remember, they always tie nature to it. Guidestones do it, these documents do it. This is good for the planet. We have to eradicate people. We just have to. Otherwise, the world ends, which I think is all a farce. Again, I've said it before that even in the NSSM 200 here, they acknowledge, well, we don't really know what the Earth can sustain. We don't know the number, but it's probably not a lot, so we need to kill everyone. They even acknowledge they don't know what's sustainable. And I've heard it said that the entirety of the world population could fit comfortably within Alaska alone. And we've got the resources. Resources are renewable. Water, you can collect rainwater and recycle it. Look, if you can purify piss and drink it, then I don't think it's going to be a problem. Water pollution is a real thing, but all these resources that they're saying that humanity is going to destroy the earth, and follow this logic, humanity is going to deplete the earth's resources. We're going to run out of food and stuff, so that's going to kill a lot of people. So in order to avoid a lot of people dying, we have to kill a lot of people. That's their logic. We need to depopulate, otherwise people will die. Okay. So that's what we're up against. And so now it's, well, we've only got 10 years, because 10 years is Agenda 2030. That's their completely Orwellian dystopian future deadline. And then climate lockdowns are coming as well. So if you've received the vaccination because you wanted to travel or you wanted to retain your rights, obviously by now you know that's not good enough, because now the vaccines, guess what? They don't work. You're still getting sick. And actually the unvaccinated are getting sick the vaccinated rather are getting sick at a higher rate than the vaccinated. And as a matter of fact, the cases of COVID-19 are a lot higher ever since the vaccines were rolled out. So figure that one out. So no, you don't get more freedom. We lied to you. We said we we're going to release these restrictions if you got vaccinated, like we told you. But actually, you're still locked down. I'm sorry, because now you need boosters. And once you get the booster, you're still going to be locked down, because that's not going to be effective either. And furthermore, even aside from all of the COVID-19 nonsense, they are going to implement climate lockdowns. How do I know that? Because, again, that's what they say. Klaus Schwab says that what COVID-19 has shown us is that lockdowns are really great for the planet. And so what we're going to have to do moving forward is have climate lockdowns. We're gonna have regular lockdowns to reduce the carbon footprint that we're inventing, and we're going to continue to set forest fires and create carnage to facilitate and foster our climate change alarmism narrative, and get people to really buy into this, so that we can lock you down tighter and tighter and tighter. And it is the frog boiling in the pot. So the reason that you get a restriction and then it's loosened just a little bit, and then a stronger restriction, and then they kind of taper off that, and then an even stronger restriction, is because if you turn the temperature up too much, the frog feels the heat and jumps out of the pot. So all this is all that. So, for example, I'm about to be unemployed because Biden has said that healthcare facilities that accept federal funding, all employees have to be vaccinated. Initially, it was you can opt for weekly testing, and so far we can still do that. And I had this discussion with a coworker, and I said, "Well, that's not going to last." And kind of went back and forth, and she's like, "Well, what if it does, though?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not going to." And she's very open-minded, but trying to look at things from other angles. And I don't know how to tell people that, look, this is the trajectory we're on. So it's almost impossible, they've gone to such lengths to turn up the heat on us and to take our restrictions or take our freedoms away. They're not going to relinquish that. So if they ever throw you a bone, it's short-lived. So that's an example of it. If they just said, you know what, you're fired right away without any kind of, we'll mitigate it by saying you can at least get weekly testing, frogs would jump out of the pot. But instead, what happened is a lot of us said, well, I guess I'll just do the weekly testing. And now when it's coming down to it, a lot of those people that said, well, I'm going to do the weekly testing, now that Biden has said, nope, you're not going to do that either, they're considering getting the vaccination. And that's why people get vaccinated. A lot of them don't believe in it. They're doing it from coercion. And could there be anything creepier? Was this de Blasio? Who was it who did this stupid commercial where he's sitting there with a burger and eating it and going, you get a burger if you get vaccinated. Every time you think of the vaccine, I want you to think of a big, juicy burger. Just the creepiest kind of stupid coercion that would not work on a 4-year-old. And that's just the kind of nonsense that we're dealing with. So what does it culminate in? It culminates in a dystopian transhuman future where true humanity has been bred out because we're in this spiritual war of this anti-human force trying to eradicate us. And if you really want to get weird, it's the same old story from Genesis 6, where you had the fallen angels come down to mingle with women and reproduce, and that's what produced the giants, which again sounds ludicrous, but there's so many articles throughout history, real articles, upwards of 1,500 of the remains of giant skeletons being found. So you're going to convince me that all of those are hoaxes? And that was just a given throughout history. Even Abraham Lincoln had said that in his speech at Niagara Falls, he said something along the lines of, years ago, that extinct species of giants gazed over Niagara as ours do now. It was a given. People knew that there were giants, and so that provides a little substance for that Genesis 6 narrative. Well, the intention of these fallen angels was to breed out the human race, and they came pretty damn close, which is why the flood was initiated. And the evidence for a global flood is overwhelming. Um, Even scientists have to acknowledge that, yes, everything was covered in water at one point, because fossilization requires an organism to be rapidly buried. We've got whales in deserts and marine life fossilized at top mountains across the entire globe. We've got polystrate fossils. We've got all kinds of things that point in that direction. And you think, well, that's impossible. Global flood? No, it isn't. It's not impossible at all. There's 3 times the amount of all of the surface, the oceans on the surface of the earth. There's 3 times that amount of water beneath the surface of the earth. And that is from atheistic secular science. So, of course, just in the same way that a geyser bursts forth water from below, that's what it says. It says it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. It doesn't say that that's how the earth flooded. It says that the well springs of the deep were opened up. And that was to eradicate this giant race that was overtaking the world. If you go back to a lot of these disparate cultures and you discuss their origin stories, they'll all say pretty much the same thing, whereas the name might be Utnapishtim and not Noah, and maybe in some of the native legends, they escaped on a canoe, a great canoe, just different terminology for the ark or a large boat. The similarities are pretty undeniable. So you go back far enough, and the origin story is all the same. So it's only in this modern era of history that we have become so arrogant to think that we know everything. And the further we come along in our technology and the more pride we develop, the stupider we become, because we start to fancy ourselves these intellectuals that we just know so much now. Well, no, you don't. You don't know jack about who's going to know more about what happened 4,000 years ago. Somebody who's alive 4,000 years later, or someone who's alive 500 years later. People back then had a stronger understanding of accurate history. We're not smarter than they are. We are never smarter. Just we have more technology. Um, these are we're never stupid people. Um, and so that's just human arrogance that, well, we're smart now. The people back then were so dumb. Haha, they had such stupid beliefs. No, we've gotten away from the truth of reality. That's what really happened. But these human animal hybrids is essentially what these giants were, perversions of humanity. That was Satan's anti-human attempt to breed out the human genome. And now we've got another attempt. It's the same old story, but in a different format. Here again, oh, we're going to give you this mRNA. It's going to alter what it means to be human. We're going to change what it means to be human. And these people that are saying it are Luciferians. Um, they are part of these secret society cults who, if you dig deep enough in the literature, you find that, in fact, they are worshippers of Lucifer, the light bearer. And that's who they follow. That's who they get their instruction from. And that's how they operate. So when the things that they're telling you so closely resemble the same plot that we heard about from the beginning of human history, there's a reason for that. It's because it's the same spiritual force behind it. And you want to retain your humanness at all costs. Back in those times when God was saying you need to go into this land and you slaughter every man, woman, and child, a lot of those were ancient Nephilim tribes, so they weren't fully human, and that's where you see this is a point that L.A. Marzulli makes. Uh, Most of the time, when you see that God, there's just no forgiveness or remorse, or like here we'll give you a way out of this. It's it's when he's dealing with anti-human forces because we as humans are his people, and there's this force coming up against us. He is the pro-human force fighting in our corner. So there is no mercy when it comes to his children being threatened. So he orders their execution. There's no forgiveness available for them. And you hear in Revelation on the other side of the Bible, um, where there's no forgiveness, is when you take the mark of the beast. Well, what is that? Well, that would make sense. If the mark of the beast is something that alters your genome and it's changed what it means to be human, so you're no longer human, meaning there's no longer salvation available to you. That's when you see God with this very rigid, no exceptions. Um, you're irredeemable. You're not a human. You're not in God's image. You're not a part of his family. You've opted out of that. I'm not saying that these like Moderna and Pfizer are the mark of the beast. I'm saying that there are shadows of the mark of the beast in this vaccination system, even down to what else does Scripture say? You can't buy, sell, or trade without the mark. You need to take the mark, or you can't buy, sell, or trade. Well, what are we hearing about now? You're not allowed to buy, sell, or trade unless you get that Vax Pass. And again, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying it's probably a precursor. So at all costs, don't get the vaccine. Just die instead. You're much better off dying. Um, people who die and live to tell about it. I know how that sounds, but it's happened thousands and thousands and thousands of people. They don't want to come back. They like where they went, and uh, they want to come back to this earth. So there's an afterlife, and it's better than the fake eternal life of the transhumanist, which makes people want to die so badly, but they can't achieve it because they tried to usurp God's creation and do better than God, what God has done in the first place. You have to die. That's your ticket to get to eternal life. Unfortunately, he didn't design it that way. That's what happens when sin is introduced and has to be cut off. So it's just a natural part of the process. Um, that would be my recommendation. Try to get eternal life the right way instead of some transhumanistic, pathetic attempt to recreate the absolute perfection of the most powerful divine entity in all of reality. Go with that entity rather than Kurzweil's I'm going to become a god. I'm going to do it my way. And I don't know. He wants to be a god. Does he want to be? Is he looking for worship? Or these people are Luciferian nutbags. Not the kind of people you want to join with. So where does it all end? What's it all leading to? Transhumanism is where this is leading, and it's just going to be a replay of of the way it was at the dawn of human history. Um, as it is said in it, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the time of the coming of the Son of Man. Well, what was the days of Noah? Well, the dissolution, the perversion of the human genome, that was the days of Noah. It said Noah was pure in his generations. Does that mean he was sinless? That's why God spared him? That's the traditional understanding. What if it means his blood was pure? Noah and his family were purely human. And so that's why he was spared, to continue the human race. We know he wasn't sinless, right? He got shit-faced after that ark landed. It says in the Bible that getting drunk is a sin. It doesn't say drinking is a sin, but getting drunk is. Um, so he wasn't sinless. Couldn't have been that righteous. However, it also does say that righteousness is credited to you. Faith is credited to you as righteousness. He could have been righteous in that regard. I suppose he probably was. Just because you get drunk doesn't mean you're evil. But I tend to take that perspective. Noah had pure blood. This is a seed war, hence the verse that I'll put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. We know who Eve's offspring is. It's us. It's humans. What did that mean when he said Satan has offspring? What is Satan's offspring? The Nephilim were Satan's offspring. The giants were Satan's offspring. Genetic corruptions. And so if you accept genetic corruption in this modern day, then you forfeit your humanity. If that sounds like a good idea to you, go ahead. Knock yourself out. I'm not going to do it. All right. That's all I got.